Money Radio, discussing the business of making and spending money.
Hello, you're welcome to today's edition of Money Radio on Leadership Podcast. Money Radio brings you the latest development in Nigeria's business and economy cycle and issues of businesses around the world. My name is Innocent Odo, and today we are going to talk about industrial development in Nigeria in this very segment. And our focus today will be automotive industry in Nigeria, the challenges and way forward for this very important sector in the country. Now, it might interest you to know that in the early 70s, towards the 1980s also, Nigeria showed some promises in the automotive industry sector when the federal government signed a joint venture agreement with car and truck manufacturing companies who came into Nigeria to assemble cars, trucks, and other forms of vehicles that actually dominated the automotive sector in the country at that point in time. But as time goes on, and of course, following a downturn in the country's economy, some of these companies have started fizzling out, and today they are barely a shadow of themselves. So we're looking at how we're going to resuscitate this very important sector, especially now that the country is talking about diversifying away from oil and, of course, creating the needed employment opportunities for the youth by making sure that this sector is giving the necessary attention that it requires in terms of investment in all ramifications. I'm not alone in the studio. I'm here with two gentlemen with whom I'm going to do justice to this very important topic. To my left, I will let me introduce Paul Wadima. Paul, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
And to my right, I will have Kes Hammond. Kes, welcome to the program.
Thanks, it's my pleasure being here.
Let me start with you, Kes. The automotive industry in Nigeria, like I said, showed some promises in the early 70s up to 80s, when Nigeria enjoyed some substantial level of oil boom in those days. But then, as time went on, we discovered that there were no concrete policy to sustain that kind of policy, no sustainability in that policy. And so gradually we started losing ground, and a lot of those companies are no longer doing as they should do. You remember the Peugeot Nigeria, the one we usually call PAN. Remember Anamco. Remember Leyland, and about 6 flourishing plants in the country at that time doing well. Today they were all shadows of themselves. What is your reaction to this?
Everything boils down to government. Just like you said, in the 1960s, the 1970s, and the 1980s, the governments in power then were actually supporting the auto industry. I will mention this first of all, that government supported the auto industry, but to a large extent, the auto industry was privately run. Yes, it was privately run. You go to the documents, you go to the history of the auto industry in Nigeria, you get to realize that the auto industry was privately run, and we had private investors, private foreign investors. All that was needed, all that government was doing was to create an enabling environment. The auto industry started to nosedive when government started getting largely involved. That is one thing. Another thing is the environment has not been enabling. In the world today, there is no such thing as made in China, made in Korea, made in the USA, made in the UK. No. You may see that, but actually, if you go look at the processes and the stages of production of any such item, it's actually done in a number of countries. Yes. So something can be designed, like your phone here can be designed in the USA. It can be Some parts of it may be produced in China, some other parts in Malaysia, in Singapore, and then everything may be coupled in another country. That's the way things are. So mainly the auto industry. Back to the auto industry. There were assembly plants
Yes.
here in Nigeria, and those assembly plants we had them. They were thriving. They were doing well. You mentioned Volkswagen. You mentioned Peugeot, Leyland, Anamco. That is Mercedes.
Yes.
Yes, all of those things were doing well. Anamco is one example that when government actually got involved, they started not to diving. But just to let's continue. So the enabling environment, number one, like the reason why I mentioned the issue of made in the world is because investors carry out or they make inputs in the production of goods
Yes.
are actually done based on how environmental friendly and how cheap it is, because there is competition. People want to produce cheap. When I say cheap, I'm not talking about the quality, but the cost of production.
Yes.
People want to produce cheap items
Items.
so that they can be more competitive. Of course, if my phone is costing 5,000 naira and yours is costing 3,000 naira and it's the same quality, I will go for the 3,000 naira phone. Yes. So the cost of production in Nigeria, or the cost of assembly, was fairly cheaper in Nigeria. And so investors were in at that time. But with time, things like electricity, you had the cost of production being high because of electricity. And another thing I would like to mention is we have not had on an auto law. We have only had auto policies. And so you see that to import a car would be cheaper. It turned out to be cheaper importing cars than buying made up, assembled in Nigeria cars, where it will be expensive because of the cost of production. And the federal government and state governments were not supporting. Yes, look at let's come down to 2022. How many cars owned by the federal government do you see that are innocent? Innocent.
We're going to come to that.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, if we had cars that were produced in Nigeria like the ones that we had before, that were being supported by the government, that auto industry will have thrived much more than it is doing now. In 2018, the Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, she came here and she visited Nigeria. She visited the National Assembly on auto issues, and there were MOUs signed. On that same trip, she visited Ghana. Ghana put her house in order. Ghana put those policies and made their own. They made theirs a law. And of course, right now, a good number of those companies that are thriving in Nigeria. When I say thriving, I'm talking about in terms of sale. They are doing well in Nigeria, but they are being produced in Ghana. What do you think assembled in Ghana? So what do you think will happen in the very near future with cars being assembled in Nigeria, in Ghana, and with the after market expanding? Of course, our borders will be open, and so cars that will be assembled in Nigeria, in Ghana, will actually come here duty free, fairly duty free, because they are assembled there. And when that is done, who loses?
The case is as good as mine. I turn it over to you, Paul. Case has mentioned a lot of things. Issue concerning policies and programs of the government in relation to this very important sector. Now, what do you think is actually the problem? The advantage we used to have in the early 70s and 80s, we started losing them. Is it because of, he mentioned some of the things that are losing interest, cost of production, and of course, there are so many inconsistencies in the way government manages their businesses like this. What do you think actually is the main problem?
I think it has to do with inconsistency of policies and laws. In 1994, there was a law which was gazetted actually under the military, that no government institution or organization should import foreign vehicles unless if there is no local company in Nigeria that could be able to provide that vehicle. Now that policy was not followed through because even those who made it broke it. So that's part of the challenges we have: inconsistency in policy and laws. In 2014, there was the national automobile policy, which became a law. In fact, based on that, it was a 10-year program that within these 10 years, Nigeria will have 100% local content. And we just have a few years left now. We're in 2022, maybe less than 2 years to 2024. You can agree with me that you cannot say that that policy has yielded the desired results because of the same policy inconsistency. If you look at it, it's a program that government believe will solve a lot of problems at once. You know, it's a conglomeration of solutions that will yield a positive result for the country. It was expected to at least provide 700,000 direct jobs, over 200,000 indirect jobs, and then provide over 400,000 jobs through raw material suppliers. That was the target. But you and I know that from what is on the ground right now, that is not what is the case now.
Yes.
And it's a combination of forces, which include poor management of the economy, which affected even the local manufacturers, which affected the pockets of the ordinary Nigerians. Then the influx of imported, fairly used vehicles, which help in killing the local industry. Nigeria spend about 1.08 trillion naira annually to import vehicles. And that's, out of that amount, 85% of it are fairly used vehicles. So when you have such a large quantum of fairly used vehicles, which are affordable to ordinary people, at least for some people, it kills the local industry, especially the local car assembly industry and manufacturing industry of cars. So it's part of the challenges. And then the components of the cars, like he rightly pointed out, no car is wholly made in one country. There are many cars use the seats may be made in Germany. Some of the other components parts, even the brake pad or whatever is inside the vehicle, are being arranged and manufactured in several parts of the world. That's why I used to laugh at some people who used to, say that Motor, are they producing engine in Nigeria, or why they say that manufactured in Nigeria when they don't have the engine produced in Nigeria? That's not right. In automobile industry, component parts are produced from different parts of the world and are assembled in a particular place. And I've said it. We have people who are manufacturing cars in Nigeria, and Innocent is among them. And they need the support of the federal government and corporate organizations. So, but the challenge we are having is they put so much tariff on the importation of components. The component parts that are coming into Nigeria, they put tariff of over 35%. This is not done anywhere in the world if you want to encourage the automobile industry. It's not done in India. That's not the way India was able to grow and become almost sufficiency in the automobile industry. That was not how Russia was able to make it in the automobile industry. Even China, that was not how they did it. So they have to come to a position whereby the tariff for vehicle components, importation of vehicle components should be reviewed so that the cost of selling the vehicle after it has been manufactured will be affordable to Nigerians. Because if the present rate continues, well, they're not going to be very competitive, because with the mentality of Nigerians, if you see a locally made vehicle and they are selling you is 10 million, and then another one is coming from maybe China or from UK, and they say this one is 12 million, there's a tendency, if you have the remote, to suspect that why don't I put 12 million, buy the one of 12 million, because you are imagining that it will be the one that will last better for you. Yes. And so we have to put it in such a way that there must be drastic difference in the amount that the manufacturers can sell. And also we have to have a loan process. In India and Russia, they have 5% loan strategy, whereby people can buy these cars from the manufacturers directly, brand new cars instead of fully used car, and they will be removing from their salary or whatever 5% of whatever they are earning, so that in the process the idea of owning brand new cars manufactured in the country begin to spread. Yes. That's how things can be done better.
Okay, we are going to please hold your thought on that. Okay. We'll be back after this short break.
Money Radio. Discuss.
For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.
Money Radio. Discussing the business of making and spending money.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we're still talking about challenges and way forward for Nigeria's automotive industry. I've been in the studio with Paul Wadima and Kes Hammond before we went on that short break. And then, Kes, before we went on that short break, Paul mentioned something very, very critical about what we must do to ensure that we revive this sector. Now, the issue of government inconsistency in policy has been identified as one of the major problems definitely in this sector. There's another thing about lack of technical or the technicality that is required in that sector may not have been adequate in the country. I know one or two persons like Innocent they're trying to assemble or even produce cars in Nigeria, but I do not know how much of investment he has attracted from some of those companies that may have had a partnership with Nigeria or even partnership with the federal government to produce more locally, sourcing the materials locally, and of course ensuring that the cost of production is put at a point where Nigerians can, in fact, afford to buy brand new cars made in Nigeria, even if it's through subsidizing the production of cars by Innocent.
Look, you mentioned this issue of policy. Let's start with that issue. Okay, let's start with the technicalities or technicians. Nigerians or Nigeria is not having a dearth of technicians when it comes to people
Technical expertise.
technical expertise. Young people are here. The schools may not. We are having less technical schools, and you can actually link it to this situation. So the technical schools will have thrived much better than this if we had those in the auto industry working. But probably many of the people who, or many of our young people who come out of these technical institutions are actually they become brain waste because nowhere to
Engage them.
Yeah. So once we begin to have these industries revived, those things will naturally play out. Let me give you an example. Because of government, I would say inconsistency in the oil sector. Let's use that as an example. The oil sector. Of course, we know that our refineries have been going down the drain. Don't you think that if the Dangote refinery comes on board, you begin to have Nigeria? Of course, Dangote has been training thousands. I've forgotten the number of thousands he has trained, but there are tens of thousands that Dangote has actually trained to man his refinery. There are a few foreign experts that are in, but with time, the country may not need them because the locals will have been trained to run that refinery and run it optimally and efficiently. Yes, that is what we call backward integration. The skills actually come back to the country. Now, the problem we have been having goes back to policy. Mr. Paul mentioned, for example, that there was a 1994 policy on the auto industry that every government institution must buy made in or produced in Nigeria cars. That is a policy. But when we say policy flip-flop or policy somersault, another government can come with a different policy. That is not a law. If we have laws governing the auto industry, then you know that another government cannot just come and change those laws. So, for example, Mr. Paul mentioned a certain percentage of tariff on parts.
Yes.
If that were a law, if you had a law governing the tariff regime of auto parts, that law would remain a law. So that when a foreign investor is saying that there is a market, the Nigerian market is huge for investment, and he's coming looking at those nitty-gritties, making sure that he can afford this tariff, he can import this, he can import that, or he can get this locally. There are some parts that can be gotten locally. He mentioned that also. For example, you can have the chairs. The chairs can be produced. Of course, the chair that we're sitting in now, they have been produced in Nigeria. These are not they're not much different from the seats we have in our cars. What about the upholstery? What about the wires? Nigerian wires are among the best in the world. A number of them glass. You can have glass. All of things are fittings on the auto, in the automobile. So that industry alone can grow many other industries. But let's come back to the issue of policy. Once the policy is not there, the foreign investors, and these are the people who have the expertise and the finance. Once that policy is there, but the law is not there to govern whatever the government wants to achieve, those foreign investors are going to look and no, this is not the place I should be going. I give you the example of the president or vice president of Volkswagen in Africa. He resides in South Africa. He was commenting about a year or two ago about that Angela Merkel's trip to Africa when she came to Nigeria and she went to Ghana. She said Ghana has gone far. They have signed their whatever they want to achieve into law. And so people look at those things and say, this is where I should be going. These policies, or no, not this, these laws are favorable to me. And they know that no government, be it what party, no government will just come and overnight change those laws But if it has to do with policy, those policies can be changed by any time. I mean, at any time. You come and maybe we are in the Buhari-led government right now, and maybe the next president becomes Chinedu, whatever, or Benga, whatever. Whoever comes to power will not overnight say, National Assembly, go and change that law. No way. You have representatives there that are working in their own interest, and they can't change that law automatically overnight. And since they can't change that law, the investors know that there is certainty in that area, and they can go and pump their money there. So once this auto issue remains a policy, we are going nowhere. That is the fact.
Okay, Paul, the auto policy, the auto laws.
We don't have an auto law.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about
It's a policy.
let me just build around towards getting an auto policy. I understand that. Auto law. I understand there is a bill before the National Assembly. I don't know how far that bill has gone to make sure that Nigeria streamlines a law, that will guide the way the sector is being run. But I do not know why there's no sense of urgency on the part of the legislators rather. And of course, I should think that this type of sector that is driven, with enough expertise, will attract the attention of the executive, who might on their own also sponsor executive bills to the National Assembly to expedite action on how Nigeria can streamline, through laws, the auto industry, so that we can begin to make people resume their confidence in Nigeria. You can't have companies that have invested time and energy in Nigeria in the 70s and 80s, and of course having understood the operating environment that we had, and suddenly begin to relocate to Ghana, and the Ghanaians have embraced them, opened their hands, opened their doors, and of course made enabling laws available for them to operate. And they are working in a country like Ghana with far, far less population than Nigeria, providing opportunities, technical competence, technical assistance, and Ghana is just better for it. And like Kes said, the issue of Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, remember, is already here with us. And if Nigeria does not do something urgent enough to begin to claim its own right of a place in Africa, many smaller countries of Africa will outshine Nigeria, and of course, Nigeria might, in fact, become the dumping ground for some of these African countries. What do you say on this?
I think you are putting too much expectation on the National Assembly. The National Assembly, majority of them are representing themselves. They are not really representing Nigerians. So the automobile law is not their priority. Don't forget, these are the same set of lawmakers who, when they were advised to buy their vehicles, official vehicles from local manufacturers, they refused. Instead, they wasted the public fund in buying imported vehicles. Do you expect this set of people to be people that will be interested in hastening the passage of laws on automobile sector? They are not interested. They are part of the problem of the country. The only hope is perhaps in the next legislative set of legislators, because right now you can't put your mind on these people, because if they are serious, if they are people that are committed to the welfare of the people and for the development of Nigerian economy, they wouldn't have wasted so much billions of naira to import vehicles when they could have made do with locally manufactured vehicles. So they are actually the problem and not the solution. So I don't think Nigerians even have confidence in them to do anything on this anymore. But what we can advise is that they should search their conscience. The countries they are going to import all these vehicles they have been using, those countries, do they spend so much money importing vehicles from other countries. Most of those countries, their government officials, they use their locally made vehicles. So that if they are to understand this, they will take serious the issue of making laws to make our automobile sector vibrant, to make it very, very sustainable, so that the bulk of all the vehicles that Nigerians are using are made in Nigerian vehicles. So I do not think they will make any difference based on what is on the ground right now. And then we should also know that government needs to support these vehicle manufacturers, because they are also involved in technological transfer and this backward integration.
Yes.
Because I remember when Innocent started, the bulk of his staff were mostly Chinese. But I think by now the Chinese have been reduced to the level of about maybe 1% of the workforce. So Nigerians have been technically trained to do some of the things that the Chinese were doing before. So it shows that backward integration, transfer of technology is very possible in the automobile sector. All you need is government support to these people by patronage, because I keep on emphasizing, because if you produce the vehicle and you cannot sell it, it makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
So it's patronage. There must be patronage by National Assembly members, State Assembly members. There must be patronage from the presidency to all levels of government and by the corporate bodies. So,
Can I
mention
one more thing? Can I mention one more thing?
Can you do that in 1 second?
I can do it in 20 seconds. When we started this program, we said we talked about the private sector and the public sector in the auto industry. That this sector started to nosedive when the government started getting involved. Innocent Motors is a typical example. That company is thriving because it's being run by a private individual. All that we need is for government to make the right policies and patronize these people. That's all.
All right. All that we need is government to make the right policies and put the right laws in place to revive the sector and, of course, bring back the old glory days of the automotive industry in Nigeria. By so doing, Nigeria's economy may begin to witness once again a revival that a lot of people are clamoring for, especially now that we are going into 2023 elections. These issues will come on the front burner all the time to interrogate the politicians who are trying to jockeying for power in order to rule the destiny of the nation. We will always inform them that this is one sector in the Nigeria's economy that should be looked into and invested in heavily so that we will achieve the diversification agenda of the federal government. It's on that note that we draw the curtains on today's edition of Money Radio. I would remember we'll be talking about the industrial sector and how we can also revive the auto industry. My name remains Innocent Odo, and I thank my guests in the studio. Kes, thank you so much for joining us in the studio.
Thank you for me today.
Paul Wadema, it's always a pleasure having you on the program. Thank you so much. And it's on that note that we say bye-bye.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.